Well, folks, after debuting on the Russian server about 6 months ago, the Inbred Kranvagn or ugly EMIL has made its way to our server. The H3 Tier 9 Premium American Heavy Tank, definitely not the Tier 10 version on the Russian server, smaller gun of an autoloader, a 120 with 5 rounds in the clip, not a 155 with 3, and also 6 seconds between each shot, so not the burst fire power of a T57, let alone a T58 heavy tank. So historically the T57 had like 10 round autoloader or 8 round autoloader clip, and the T58 has a 6 round cylinder of a 155, so you're never going to see that kind of firepower in this game, more or less. But M1 cupola on the trunnion support for the oscillating turret, it's also fixed too, so unlike the Kranvagn, you can hide it by elevating the gun. This is attached to the trunnion. The trunnion does not move, so shoot at the M1 cupola, you'll pin. Lower plate is somewhat well sloped, but you have a driver hatch that's a bulge, and also the armoring is not as good on the tier 10 version of this vehicle, definitely. So yeah, you have to wait 6 seconds for another shot, not 2 seconds. It is one more round than the T57 in our game, but it plays more like a Italian tank destroyer per se, like an autoloader, except long reload time between each shell too. So yeah, it doesn't look that great for now. So that's a trunnion supporting the T shape of the gun barrel, similarly to the Kranvagn, but the trunnion is enlarged with the commander cupola right there. So yeah, this does not move. You can't elevate the gun, but that does not hide the commander cupola. So that's kind of unfortunate. It does have somewhat decent horsepower per ton ratio per se compared to other heavy tanks, but doesn't really go that fast like a 25 horsepower per ton. That would be crazy. So still plays like a support heavy tank, except more weak spots, not exactly a haul down beast. Also less gun depression in the front because of the driver, so only gun depression is to the side, like 10 degrees or so. Normally it's like 7 in the hull front or 8, so not exactly that good of an armoring. But let me explain the trunnion. So normally a tank turret is like this, somewhat, at least Russian, right? The gun moves about in the socket for the gun depression and other stuff normally, so you can move this way, that way, that way, and that way. That's the axis, the stabilizing part of the gun. For oscillating turrets, they have a trunnion, which is a support. So let's use a AMX 1390 or something of a vehicle design. So that is the oscillating part of the turret. That is the trunnion. The commander cupola is on here, and that is the gun barrel. So you're moving the turret about. That is the rotation mechanism. But the elevation and gun depression is moving this away. So that's the support, that's a trunnion supporting the actual base, technically, of the gun. But this vehicle has the trunnion enlarged to something like this, where the gun and the actual barrel sits in the middle. So you could elevate the gun up and down, right? But the commander cupola is right here. And this does not move, so the gun could move about. It's still an oscillating turret, just an enlarged trunnion. So you're shooting at the commander cupola right here, the gun barrel's right here. You can move the gun about, but the commander cupola is static, it's fixed. So that's why the Kranvagn is so good. Kranvagn has about the same design, but it's somewhat like this for the Kranvagn. So the trunnion is covering the actual gun and the actual gun barrel. So that's the gun barrel on the Kranvagn. This is the X-ray cut the commander cupola is on the actual next to the gun barrel, so it can actually elevate the gun and hide the commander cupola about the Kranvagn. So elevate the gun points upwards, and X-ray wise, this is the commander cupola, hiding behind the trunnion, which is actually supporting the turret front. That's why the Kranvagn is so good at actually negating shots, even though it has a sliver of a cupola. The 120mm 400 alpha, 6 rounds, actually 5 rounds, 6 seconds between each round. Burst fire is not that crazy, right? So DPM on this vehicle is respectively 2,200 or so. 28 seconds for 5 rounds is decent, except 6 seconds between each shot. Aim time accuracy above average slightly, but only 7 degrees of gun depression in the front and 12 gun elevation. Elevation sucks, so don't go down a hill. You cannot point your gun upwards. Mostly 40 rounds, 4-man crew, fits all the T57 heavies, but 16.9 horsepower per ton ratio, 46 km per hour top speed. You could factor in a turbocharger to make it go faster. So this thing plays like a fat medium tank of a support, but hull traverse, turret traverse is actually fast. More like a fat medium tank at this point. 1700 health, fat medium tank, similarly to a Object 752 in a sense. About 140 hull front, garbage hull sides, and about 222 turret front. So definitely not as strong as on the Russian server. Kind of garbagey camo as well. View range okay, and radio is slightly below average for some reason. Fine. But this vehicle feels like a medium tank at best. So DPM is 2,360 based on the constant firing of the 5 rounds, but I don't know. I mean, you're exposing the turret front if you try to gun depression, but gun depression is only 7, so you cannot really crest over a hill, right? So I'll show you the tanks.gg of the actual H3 on the Russian server. It's 8 degrees at the hull front and 10 degrees at the hull sides. So kind of a weird lopsided of a gun depression. You cannot really aim the gun downwards that much. It's even less. It's supposed to be about 7 degrees. It cannot exactly hide the cupola also. It is 240 at least on the Russian server, but I doubt it's going to be 240 for the cupola. Right? I doubt it. It could be, but I doubt it. So only 10 degrees of gun depression on the hull sides. And the hull sides are pretty crap. 50 on the Russian server. So don't expect much. It's 60, but 50 is about the same as 60 in a sense. So plays like a medium, behaves like a medium. It's practically a fat medium tank at this point. So yeah, 120mm, but not exactly the burst fire capability. I would rather have a bigger punch with the T54 heavy tank with the 120 modified, but that thing has like 450 alpha for a 120, which is crazy. So I don't know. This does not look like a good vehicle for now. I mean, if it's a medium tank, fine, but it's a support heavy tank. It has no camo. I have to make the shells work. Gold shell is 304. It's okay. High explosive is not a squash head. It's only 60, but normally don't carry high explosive with autoloader. Maybe just a clip. It is 40 rounds. Maybe you could afford 1 clip of a 5-round high explosive, but then again, ugh. It could be worse. Yeah, not exactly that effective with high explosive on this vehicle. It is premium, it could make the bonds, but let's compare the Russian server version. So Russian server version model is practically the same. Practically. Just the scratch marks on the turret, on the hull, and that's basically it. The same camouflage net or tarp rolled up in the back. The fuel drum or tanks the tools, the hammer, and shovels, all the same. Even the M1 cupola is the same, except it's a 155 at tier 10. And this thing was Holiday Ops loot box with the Greyhound skin. 4-man crew. Has about the same DPM, funny enough, but it's a bigger gun. And oh boy, it's only 2 rounds? I thought it was 3. Oh no. Oh boy, it's 2 round. 155 at 5 seconds between each shot. That sucks. It's not even close to a T58 heavy. T58 heavy has like 6 rounds of a 155 in a cyclic gun barrel thing. But no. Let's see how good the armor on the Russian server. So 240 cupola is pretty good, but I doubt it. I doubt this will be 240 on our version at tier 9. There's a sliver of, like, I saw a sliver of green. Never mind, it's all 240. There's some parts are 100, but it's highly sloped. Turret front 275, effectively 335, 350. I doubt it too. Mantlet, you're not pinning. All front 100 well slope upper plate. Yep. Shoot the driver hatch. Driver hatch is 150. Wow. Bottom plate 160. So well slope 160. So definitely shoot the weak spot or shoot the driver hatch, but our version is not that well armored. 140 for the hull front, likely for the lower plate. Only 222 for the turret front, as opposed to 300 or 250. So garbage hull sides, yeah, as expected. 60 compared to 64 compared to 50, it's about the same. So I wonder how the cupola and how the driver hatch will behave, as well as the bottom plate and the turret cheeks, but I doubt it's going to be that effective as on the Russian server. And Russian server is faster to rev and better top speed too. More health, obviously, slightly better camo and better view range, yada yada, but only 2 rounds of 155? That sucks. That's unfortunate. Oh. Yeah, you want, I think, a little bit more reserved playstyle than a EMIL or Kranvagn, simply because of the armor, right? You can bounce shots with the Kranvagn. You cannot exactly do that with the cupola and the driver hatch, but it's similar to this vehicle, the T54 Heavy, the cupola, the M1 cupola. But our version of an M1 cupola, at least on the tier 9 version of the vehicle, is about 150? 190? Ah, that's not that bad, but still, you'll get pinned at tier 9. Other than tier 7 light tanks or some medium tanks cannot pin your cupola, but otherwise you'll get pinned. Yeah, you'll get pinned. 170. So it doesn't have the alpha punch of a T54. It doesn't have the gun depression. This thing has 12 degrees of gun depression. So obviously also cannot compare to a EMIL with the gun depression as well. Also the armoring. Similarly for all the Swedish heavy tanks. Yeah, you cannot exactly compare the turret armor of this thing to the H3. This thing's impenetrable, practically, if it's hauled down. Yeah, you're not penetrating. 330-ish millimeter effective without the actual gun depression. No, you're not penetrating that thing. No. Even the hull armor is somewhat respectable-ish against a tier 7, but I don't know. I mean, it's all about the turret armor and the gun depression. This thing doesn't really have it. So what's good about this vehicle? The accuracy and the aim time for an autoloader? Possibly, right? DPM is okay, but you are exposing the turret front. At least. If you want to keep up with the 6 seconds between each shot, right? So you could snipe. That might be a good idea with this vehicle, but then again, you are expected at the front lines, even though armoring is not that good. So yeah, that's a conundrum. Should you go towards the front line and actually gun depress and somewhat try to hide the cupola and actually play like a heavy tank? I don't know, but let's talk equipments. So vents, vertical stabilizer. You don't need a enhanced gun lane drive. This is archaic in a sense. You could put, actually don't need improved aiming also. 2 seconds aim time 2.2 and 0.32 accuracy. You don't really need these two, just vertical stabilizer for moving about and traversing. So I would say for this vehicle, yeah, that's good accuracy. That's actually very good accuracy and aim time for autoloader. I would say vents, vertical stabilizer, and a turbocharger. Play like a medium tank at this point, right? You can also put improved rotation mechanism to help out with the dispersion, but turbocharger is a little bit more effective. Go 50 km/h top speed. So, yeah. I wouldn't say improve hardening for vents. Namely, you cannot really side scrape, right? With 60mm hull armor, you're not really side scraping. At best. You could bounce somewhat based off the tracks, but not really. So, vents, vertical stabilizer, turbocharger. Go faster. And field mods wise, similarly to a EMIL. First one is track health or better terrain resistance. You're not side scraping. Better terrain resistance. Go faster. Rev up faster, right? Go through mud better. Better terrain resistance. Accuracy or aim time, both are decent for this vehicle. So 0.32 accuracy, make it better to like 0.3. Better accuracy. View range or stun duration. Sometimes no artillery, better view range. Always unconditionally ubiquitous stat buff, then situational stat buff, right? View range. And finally, reverse speed or reload time. Now, the reload time does not affect intra-shell reload. So the 5 seconds or 6 seconds does not affect it. Does not affect it with this. So you cannot really get a faster intra-shell reload. Therefore, it cannot burst fire that quickly. I would say better reverse speed, right? Get out of hairy situation faster. You could try to haul down somewhat, but 16 is not bad. For a heavy tank, that's actually not bad, but go backwards a little bit faster, right? Reverse out of situation, hairy situation faster, but overall, it's not the same as the EMIL, right? You can sit on top of a hill and haul down with the EMIL all the time, no question. Unless it's artillery shells, but this thing dominates any hill battle or haul down battles. You cannot really pin unless you shoot the cupola, but they could just easily elevate the gun to hide the cupola. Yeah, easily elevate the gun to hide the cupola. You cannot do that with this vehicle. The M1 cupola is stuck to the trunnion. So, it's a medium tank. If you're comparing a heavy tank to this vehicle, not exactly that good of a heavy. If you're comparing a medium tank standard-ish, which one's better? This thing needs at least faster intra-shell reload time, like 4 seconds or 3 seconds, right? You don't have to do 2 seconds. Kind of overkill for 5 rounds. Do like 3 or 4 seconds. 6 seconds is kind of too long, right? 4 seconds is already kind of too long, but it's like 2.75 for this thing and 3 for this thing. So yeah, 4 seconds, similarly to a Char Future Project 4. Kind of already feels too long, but that vehicle could snipe in the meantime. Doesn't have to use the actual armor on the Frenchie. So what the hell is the Project 4? It's 4 seconds, right? 4 seconds for 4 rounds between each shot. So this thing could snipe without getting shot back at. So I don't know how I feel about this vehicle. This vehicle feels about the same power level as a T-54 Heavy. Has some good aspects to it, but it's not a big caliber gun. It's not that scary. It also takes way too long to reload. It is 6 seconds, so still faster than the 7.5 seconds on a Conqueror or something, but nah, right? Not really. So armoring is definitely a big downside to this vehicle unless it's like 240 for the cupola, but I doubt it. So I would say for now a 4 possibly out of 10. It's not that crazy, not really. You have very good medium tanks that does what this thing do without the autoloader at tier 9. You have very good heavy tanks that do what it does at tier 9. The only upside is it's a premium tank, making the bonds, but heavy tanks for premium, some of them have turret armor, like the STRVK or the Chieftain Proto, right? Those could work well hauled down. T54 heavy is kind of meh. E77 is also meh, nerfed for our tier 9 heavy, premium wise. Not the same as a Tiger Mouse. You can hide the cupola on the 752 by elevating the gun with the trunnion blocking it. So also like this oscillating turret, but you can hide the cupola on this thing. So feels about the same ballpark as this thing, right? Kind of the same as a Taro, which is like a 4 out of 10. You'll have a better time buying any other premium tank at tier 9. So unless it's given out in a loot box, which sucks, but kind of filler in a sense. But also comparing it to a T54E1, which is supposed to be a medium tank, kind of play like the same play style, more or less. Yeah, this thing has 4 rounds, but a lot faster intra-shell reload time. 2.2 is pretty good for a tier 9, right? It does take longer to reload, but gun depression is more consistent with this vehicle. You do have better accuracy or aim time. Better mobility too. You have a bigger body though. Yeah, it's like a 4. It still feels kind of like a 4 out of 10, right? It's still better than something of this, the Panda tank, but it's not saying much. I would say 4 out of 10. Well, there you go, folks. The H3, the Inbred Kranvagn with a gigantic tumor on top and somewhat of a mini tumor for the driver hatch on the bottom, but gun depression is surprisingly not that crazy. Not a 12-degree gun depression for this vehicle too. So you have the mobility, have the somewhat decent aim time and accuracy, right? But the downside to it is you have to wait 6 seconds before you can get another shot in, which means getting counter-fired upon, even by artillery too. So you'll be spotted, and artillery shells, not fun for this thing. So I would say 4 out of 10 for now. Well, there you go, folks. As always, thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.